Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're unpacking a truly fascinating and honestly highly debated topic. We're looking at India's sprawling administrative system, but through a very specific lens. We're going to break down educator and content creator Amit Kilhor's provocative analysis of the Indian bureaucracy, specifically the IAS and IPS, and explore the massive technological disruption that might be heading straight for it. It's a deep dive into power, history, and the future of governance. Let's get right into it.
The cage is so strong, even a god cannot remove an IAS. I mean, wow, that is a massive statement, right? We're talking about the Indian Administrative Service here, the absolute apex of civil service in a nation of 1.4 billion people. Kilhor uses this really bold claim to set up his entire argument that the system isn't just powerful, it's practically immovable. Today, we're going to impartially examine the source material to understand exactly why this bureaucratic machine is perceived by critics as an unbreakable cage, and ultimately, what that means for the country.
Okay, let's look at our roadmap for today. First up, we'll explore the frame versus the cage debate. Second, we'll look at cultivating fake elitism. Third, the bureaucratic political nexus. And finally, number 4, we ask the big question, will AI break the cage?
Starting right off with number 1, frame versus the cage.
So, following independence, India's first Home Minister, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, actually envisioned the civil services as the steel frame of India. The idea was that it was designed to hold this massive, incredibly diverse nation together and maintain its unity. But Amit Kilhor offers a stark modern critique. He argues that over the last 70 years or so, this system has morphed into a steel cage. In his view, rather than letting the nation fly, it was actually designed to trap potential, maintain strict control over the public, and ultimately restrict the kind of explosive growth that India is so capable of. To really understand this cage, we kind of have to look at how it was built. So, think back to 1857, particularly right after the revolt. The core goals of the British at the time were pretty simple: extract resources, shield information from the public, and subjugate the population to prevent another uprising. The IAS controlled the land and revenue, and the IPS controlled law and order. Fast forward to 1947. India achieves independence, but the exact same administrative machinery is retained. According to the source analysis, this structure, which was literally built to subjugate a population, was just handed over to a free India. Kilhor argues that this unchanged foundational architecture is exactly why we've arrived at the modern steel cage of bureaucracy being criticized today. Moving on to number 2, cultivating fake elitism. To ground us here, we need to talk about LBSNAA, the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration. Basically, if you clear the incredibly grueling UPSC exams in India, this is where you go. It's the premier training institute for foundational civil service training. But the source material highlights some really fascinating and, frankly, troubling observations from within these very walls. Based on his interactions with selected students, Kilhor argues that LBSNA actually fosters what he calls fake elitism. Officers are rapidly instilled with a sense of being the absolute elite. They're subtly, or, maybe not so subtly, taught that everyone else is below them. It's like they're placed in this bubble where politicians arrange meetings just to see them, and police salute them the second they arrive. This creates a purposeful disconnect from ground reality. Instead of serving the people, the conditioning defaults back to that old colonial mindset we just talked about, shielding information and maintaining absolute authority over the public. But get this. Here is a truly shocking claim from the analysis. Kilhor points out that the bending of rules sometimes begins before an officer even steps foot in the academy. The source material highlights the EWS, or economically weaker section certificate loopholes. The claim is that candidates supposedly from wealthy backgrounds might transfer property to relatives, artificially lowering their on-paper income just to claim a reserved spot. The logic here is, if you enter the system by gaming the rules, well, Kilhor argues your moral compass has already shifted 1 degree before day 1 even begins. Let's look at number 3, the bureaucratic political nexus. This whole ecosystem relies on a very strict division of power. Think of it like a puzzle. The IAS officers control land permissions, building rights, and revenue. The IPS officers control law and order, and crucially, they hold all the data on conflicted or disputed lands. And the politicians? Well, they control the postings and transfers of these officers. According to the critique, this creates a tight, pretty much unbreakable nexus. Black money flows from criminals to disputed land, the police facilitate it, the administrators stamp the permits, and the politicians keep the favorable officers exactly where they need them.
To really ground this, Kilhor shares a specific anecdote involving the number 50. In Bhopal, a group of 50 IAS officers allegedly pooled together to purchase a massive plot of common land worth 5.5 crore. It really highlights how organized and deeply rooted these financial maneuvers are among the elite administrative class, when they're the ones who control the very levers of land and revenue. Now, you might be wondering, what about the honest officers? Because they absolutely exist. Well, the source maps out a pretty tragic systemic loop here. Step 1. An honest officer refuses to bend the rules or clear a shady land deal. Step 2. The political class intervenes, utilizing their specific domain of power, transfers. Step 3. That brilliant, highly educated officer is immediately transferred to a completely irrelevant department, like the archives, literally given 2 small rooms and nothing to do. The prime example noted here is Ashok Khemka, a fiercely honest officer who has faced over 50 transfers in his career. The system literally just sidelines them. So, why not just fire them if they cause friction? It's a fair question. The answer is that firing an IAS is practically impossible. Because they are union government employees working in state governments, they have immense constitutional protections, which were originally designed to keep them independent. To actually prosecute or fire an IAS requires navigating an incredibly delayed judicial system and getting explicit permission from the union government. It is so difficult that politicians just take the easy route, make them irrelevant through constant transfers. Which brings us to number 4, will AI break the cage? Let's stop and ask ourselves a huge question. What happens when technology outpaces bureaucracy? What happens when the system's human bottlenecks are suddenly confronted with instantaneous processing power? So the absolutely crucial point here is how we define a bureaucrat today. Strip away the red beacons, the massive bungalows, the prestige, and what is the core job? The source argues that they are fundamentally just information gatekeepers. They are humans primarily responsible for moving files, noting data, and controlling access to public resources and permissions. And here is the kicker. If your primary job is being a human gatekeeper of information, you are incredibly vulnerable to technological disruption. Just think about the contrast. Traditional gatekeeping relies on human file movers, holding meetings, taking days or weeks to process manual data, and intentionally or not, introducing human bias or corruption at every single step. Artificial intelligence processing, however, represents a completely different paradigm. The source notes that AI can already look at vast amounts of data and instantly predict where a flood or drought will happen, while simultaneously calculating exactly how and where to allocate resources. It literally does the job of a massive committee, instantly and with zero human bias. The sheer gap in speed is just staggering. We all know traditional bureaucracy is notoriously slow, sometimes taking years to clear a single project file. Meanwhile, AI processing is near instantaneous. When complex decisions regarding resource allocation and information management are automated, the slow, manual file noting of the administrative class becomes utterly irrelevant. And that brings us to the core takeaway of this entire explainer. Kilhor's ultimate hope isn't necessarily a political fix, it's a technological one. AI has the potential to eliminate the need for human information gatekeeping entirely. If an AI model can instantly verify an applicant's data, approve a land permit, and allocate relief funds perfectly based on real-time data, you simply don't need a middleman with a stamp holding up the line. The systemic leverage they currently hold just disappears. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen the historical roots of the cage, the elitism it breeds, and the powerful entrenched nexus it sustains. But as AI models become exponentially faster and smarter at handling data, the era of the human gatekeeper might actually be coming to an end. So, will the rise of artificial intelligence finally unlock India's steel cage? It's a massive shift waiting to happen, and definitely something we should all be watching very, very closely. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope you found this journey as fascinating as I did. See you next time.